Lately, I've been using a lot of sparkly sounds in my productions, so today I want to show you how to make them. As you can see, we are in the same project as we were in the last video, and this is the synth that we made in that last video. I think all of the macros are turned down, as we can see over here. So let me just turn them up so it's a little bit nicer. Something like that. And the reason why I want to play this sound is because these kind of particle sounds are a good starting off point for making sparkle sounds. Now there's a few different ways that we can go about it. There's a few different sound design methods that we can use. The very first one that I want to show involves the Spectral resonator inside of Ableton, because if we just open up the Spectral resonator over here, there's this cool granular mode here that just makes sparkles. As you can see, you have to set the mod rate, and that determines the amount of sparkles that you're going to get. If you go too low, you get nothing, and if you go too high, you get the resonating tonality of the actual sound, which is not what we're after. We want kind of like the sweet spot in the middle. Now, one of the cool things about this effect is that it's not tied to the rhythm of your track, and that is really one of the characteristics of sparkly sounds. Usually what you'll find is that you have all of these little bleeps and boops, and they're not really tied to any rhythm in the track or something that is like really recognizably part of the track. They're not trying to enhance the groove, they're not trying to enhance the musical idea, they're just kind of like randomly playing. So what I really like is that this effect just completely ignores any rhythmical information that it gets in input. Now let's see if we can make them a little bit brighter. That's already cool. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's go with an echo over here. That's nice. And now let's add a reverb. The type of reverb that I'm going to go for is a shimmer reverb. If you don't know what a shimmer reverb is, it's a type of reverb where the late reflections are actually pitched up, in this case an octave, as you can see over here. And you can hear that we get this almost unnaturally bright reverb out of that. Now, while I really like this technique, one of the nasty effects of the Spectral resonator is the fact that you're losing a lot of the attack of the sound. As you can hear at this point, it almost sounds like it is kind of washing in and out, and that is not really what we want. We want kind of really nice, strong plugs at the beginning. And one of the things that we could do is just try to synthesize something like that as opposed to using effects like we did before. Because while this is a very quick effect, you don't have a lot of control over, for example, the attack, which in this case is just non-existent. So what I want to do is I want to create some sparkles. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to make a new MIDI track. Now in one of my folders, I have this MIDI file over here, which is just 4 bars of all of the MIDI notes that you could possibly have. As you can see, every MIDI note is being played here. And this is just one of those useful sound design tools, because now we can take this and we can add an arpeggio to it. Let's also add a serum so that we can hear what is happening here. As you can see, my arpeggiator by default opens to random other and 1/16 notes. So you get something like this. Not very sparkly yet. So first of all, let's set this to a sine wave. Let's give it a little bit of release. Let's lower the sustain a little bit so that we get a nice attacky sound. Maybe for the lowest frequencies, we don't really want them. So what we can do is just scroll down and delete some of these. Let's go back into the synthesis part and let's give it 2 voices of unison. What I would also like to do is have the phase over here. So the random all the way down so that we don't get any clicks from the waveform starting at the position where it's not 0. Cool. Let's add a little bit of stereo wave also with the dimension expander and the hyper. Maybe a bit of chorus. I just want to wash out the sound a little bit here. Now this is a cool starting point, but we don't really have that sparkly feeling yet, in that it's still just playing a rhythm. When I imagine a lot of sparkly sounds, I imagine, as I said, that kind of rhythmless sound that maybe sometimes washes in or stuff like that. So what I want to do is I'm just going to duplicate this so that I have a copy of this. And then I'm going to freeze this. So now we have something that sounds like this. And actually what we can do now is we can take this sound over here and drop it in the simpler. So I have a simpler already loaded up and I'm just going to drag it in there. And then I'm going to loop this. I'm going to make the loop length very short, maybe something like this. And then we'll fade here. Make sure that snap is turned off. As you can see, if we play through that, let's set up a MIDI clip here and let's set up a very high note. So in this case, C3, maybe. It's maybe not even fast enough. Something like that. And now we can set up an automation here. Just randomly go up and down. Maybe this is a little bit too fast. The speed of all of the sparkles in this case is determined by the note that you play. So you can hear if I lower this, you get a longer loop length. You hear that it kind of slows down if I go even lower. Maybe higher. But now you can hear we actually have some sparkles out of that. And let's add a delay to this. Say that we want to pitch it up independently of the length of the loop. We can do that over here. And again, if we want to add a little bit of extra ambience, something like a shimmer reverb would be really nice. And there you have a second way of making these kind of sparkly sounds. The final thing that I want to show you is a particular kind of plugin that I like to use whenever I'm creating sparkly sounds. So in this particular case, we're deleting the delay and the reverb. And we're just going to go into plugins and select Beam over here. I already did a video on this, but the main thing that I want to highlight is that in the preset browser over here, we have these particle sprays. And all of these are really nice to get those kind of arrhythmical kind of sounds. As you can hear, for example, from this one, this is a really good example of, you can hear how in the tail we get some really cool sounds out of it. So what I would do in this case is I would resample that. And flatten. Let's consolidate this so that we can set it to a nice volume. So I just like to see the waveform whenever I'm doing this. So let's keep the same volume by setting it over here in the mixer. And now what is really interesting is just taking a part of the delay tail and actually using that as your sound. So say that you want 1 bar of sparkly sounds. Of course, we probably want to add a little bit of fade at the start. Make sure that it doesn't have clicks or anything like that. Also do the same thing at the end. And now again, we'll take our delay and reverb. In fact, I'm just going to take that from the other spot where we have it, delay, reverb, and plop it in over here. Let's make this a little bit louder by again consolidating this. Let's set a delay that's a little bit shorter by setting it to 1/4 here. I'm also going to set the dry wet above 50%. So let's maybe go for 80. In this case, it might be nice to fade it in over time. So we can do that with the input volume, like this. Maybe just a normal fade in as well. And now if we remove some of the lowest frequencies here, you can hear that we get this really cool detailed sparkly texture. Now as you can see, there's some really cool sound design that is going on with these kind of sounds. The main thing that I want you to take away is just kind of like the properties that the sounds have, and then you don't really need to implement the specific techniques that I've shown now, but you can just arrive at your own techniques. Because at the end of the day, that is more important than learning how to make the sound that I just made. When it comes to these kind of sounds, when I have a specific type of sound that I want to make, what I don't end up doing is like searching for tutorials and then just step by step following those tutorials. I personally like to look at a particular type of sound and see if I can reduce it to a bunch of characteristics like we did in this case. We did like high frequency, we did like kind of like textured. We could say that generally speaking, it has some attack to it, every individual like instance of the sound. And then there's a whole bunch of these sounds playing very closely together in a way that is like arrhythmical. And that is what gives the broader overall sound. But you can basically think of it as being made up of individual, like an individual sparkle, that then if you have enough of them and you play them together without actually having any rhythm, you get this bigger sparkles kind of textural sound. So that's going to be the video for today. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you did by leaving a like and make sure that you're subscribed. Another way that you can support the channel is by watching some more of my content. So I'll leave 2 videos up on the screen for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.